Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Promo Perspectives Live, a podcast presented by Sage, dedicated to giving promotional products, distributors, and suppliers tips, tricks, and insights to help grow their business. If you're live with us on Zoom right now, welcome. So glad to have you here. This episode will be posted next week everywhere you listen to podcasts. Please go subscribe. We have all kinds of great bonus content on those platforms that we can't fit into the live stream. If you're listening to the podcast version now, make sure to head to sageworld.com to register for the next live show. We have some really exciting stuff coming up. And I'm particularly excited for today's episode. We are just 2 months away from the PPAI Expo in January 2025. It's the largest trade show in our industry. Distributors and suppliers from all over the United States, Canada, and the rest of the world make the pilgrimage to Vegas to show off their products, discover new products, grow their network, and learn from experts, and partake in all kinds of amazing events and activities surrounding the show throughout the week. I'm joined today by two very special guests from PPAI, Director of Sales and Professional Development, Lindsey Davis, and Show Manager, Ashley Van Der Stuyf. They're two of the driving forces at PPAI behind planning and executing the show, and today they're going to share with us their insights on what goes into putting together the expo and how you can get the most out of attending the show. Lindsey and Ashley, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Dave.
To kick us off, why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do at PPAI?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I'm Lindsey Davis, like you said. I am our Director of Sales and Professional Development. So I oversee our supplier sales team. So we sell booths, advertising. Expo is a big part of our focus, certainly at the moment. And then I also oversee our professional development. So that's conferences, education. And right now we're focused on Expo as well and the great education we put on there.
Yeah, and I am the show manager, so I oversee the event operations for the Expo as well as our conferences throughout the year.
Well, so like I said, Expo is less than 2 months away at this point. And for a lot of us, you know, the suppliers and distributors, we're really only thinking about Expo for maybe a couple of months out of the year, from the time we register to attend and book our hotel rooms until we fly home from Vegas. But for you guys, I know it's on your mind a lot longer. Mm-hmm. So how far ahead is PPAI planning the Expo?
Yep. So our main focus right now is 2025, but our planning extends even further than that. We are currently reviewing contracts and laying the groundwork for Expo 2028 through 2030, which seems far away, but it is right around the corner.
It'll be here before you know it, especially. What are some of the challenges that go into planning such a large event?
Yep. So for me, I think event planning and challenges go hand in hand. I think every event you plan, something's going to pop up, whether it's out of our control or just something we've never experienced before. But I think relying on your vendors is really a good priority to have, as well as being adaptable and just going with the flow. I think a lot of people here remember Expo Party 2024, moving from Allegiant to the ballroom, 60 days notice. But obviously, that was a challenge, but has been one of my favorite events that we planned. So
just got to be able to roll with the punches,
Exactly.
Control the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So there's obviously two different big categories that go to the show. We've got the exhibitors, our suppliers, and then the attendees, the distributors. So what are the primary goals for each of those groups of people?
Yeah, so our exhibitors, they are trying to make connections with the attendees. So that might look like dinners, that might look like networking in the booth, that might look like a drink at eye candy. Mm-hmm. But they're trying to build new relationships, grow the ones they currently have, and really spend that time developing their sales pipeline for the rest of the year. Attendees, I think, have much more diverse goals. I think some attendees use it to learn the industry. Some people are brand new. Some attendees use that event to source for specific projects they know are coming up in their year. Some use it to look for new items. Some use it to negotiate pricing, different areas like that. So I think it really depends on what their goals are for the following year that drives their activity at Expo.
And what does PPAI do kind of in the planning and execution process to cater to those diverse goals?
Yeah, so I mean, we really think a lot about those meaningful collisions that happen when people are in person and how we can help that happen even more. So that's everything from assigning booths and getting organized from a just logistical perspective to planning events and networking opportunities, big and small, that bring people together while they're on site.
Well, and distributors might hear all that you have to do and think, wow, it's not, what I have to do isn't that crazy. It's just booking a plane ticket and getting there. But there's a lot more that goes into being out of town and being in Las Vegas for a week. So, do you have any advice maybe for anybody that hasn't booked their travel yet?
Ooh, yeah, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I would say, what are you waiting for? Register and book your housing today. I just booked my flight last 2 weeks ago, so I would say get ahead of it. Pricing increases for our ticketed events are increasing in 2 weeks, so December 6th they'll go up, so take advantage of the slightly discounted rates right now.
It's a good reminder. I have not booked my flight yet.
Well, and see, that just to make everybody feel more comfortable. There is still time. Just because
Yes.
you guys are planning for 2026 and far ahead doesn't mean that they're too far gone if they haven't bought their tickets yet.
Right.
There's still
Yeah.
plenty of time. So how about in Las Vegas itself? It can be a bit of a monster getting around. Do you guys have any tips for getting around in Vegas?
Yeah, so if you're staying at Luxor Excalibur, PPAI organizes a shuttle that'll take you to and from the convention center. So check out the travel and accommodations page on our website to get those hours. I would say that Mandalay Bay has a tram that you could take from Luxor and Excalibur as well. And then if you're getting off the strip or outside of Mandalay Bay, use a taxi. It's my favorite mode of transportation.
Those are things I wish I had known on my first trip to Vegas, because I was staying in the Luxor and then walking. I mean, it's a mile each way, right, to go from the Luxor to the Mandalay Bay floor. And it feels like even more when you're not seeing the daylight. How about, before we get into some of the more show-specific stuff, any other tips about, like, what are some must-haves when you're packing for this trip?
Comfy shoes, for sure.
And lots of them. I'm a big advocate of you have to hurt your feet differently every day, because like it doesn't matter. Like they're all gonna hurt. You can buy the comfiest tennis shoes. They're still gonna hurt. So the second suitcase just for shoes, I think, is a great choice. And my other favorite tip is to find yourself some outside time. So like one of the restaurants on site at Border Grill even has a patio if you eat downstairs. So because you're right, you can spend 4 or 5 days and realize you've never seen the actual sunshine, just the pretend one.
Oh, the pretend lights and the pumped in oxygen.
Yes,
exactly.
It's important
Yes.
to live like an actual human being
Yes.
while you're there. Okay, so why don't we start off talking a little bit about the exhibitor side of things, our suppliers. What are the best practices for exhibitors to really maximize their return on investment to go to Expo?
Yeah. So I'd say a few things. Be really intentional about the products you bring. I think you only get so much attention from people in your booth. They're not going to stay and have a half-hour conversation. You've got a few seconds to get their attention and then maybe a few minutes. So trying to bring your entire catalog and not have a focus is going to make you less successful than you could be. So bring what's new, bring what is a bestseller for those people who maybe everything is new because they haven't worked with you before. Have a plan of attack, know what your main point is going to be no matter what. So what is the thing I have to get out of my mouth when someone's in my booth? And then where do I go from there? Be prepared with good questions that help you learn more about what that customer cares about, what accounts they have, what they're working on right now. And then be prepared for follow-up. I think everyone knows you have to follow up after a show, but you'd be surprised how many people then don't take that action or don't take it well because they either didn't take good notes or they thought they would remember something that they ended up forgetting, or they got back and had an email box full of a week's worth of emails and then didn't take the time intentionally to follow up. So whether that's leveraging Sage ShowLink on site, the amazing lead scanning system, it has a great field for notes. You can even add flames 1 through 5 of how hot the lead is. It's very cool. And then you'll be prepared when you get back to follow up right away. So.
It can be really difficult, I know, because like you said, the follow-up's the most important. What is the point of going through all that if you don't actually get something out of it at the end?
Exactly.
With everything that's going on, it can just be hard to keep track of all that stuff. You're exhausted, you're missing out on work, but it is the reason you're there. Right?
Absolutely. And then I would just say go to everything. I mean, the amount of business you do on the show floor is amazing, but the amount of business you do because you went to the opening party, because you went to an education session, because you spent that time is, I think, even more incredible. The conversations that happen off the show floor are just as important as the ones that happen on the show floor. So be present and go to everything.
And I'm sure there's already some crossover here with some of the things you mentioned, but how about the attendee side of things? What can they do to maximize their experience?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So, I'm going to plug one more time, Sage here, but I mean it. Leverage the Sage mobile app. Go with a plan. You can actually create walk lists in the app. That's so cool. And so you make sure that you hit all the exhibitors that you want to hit while you're there, whether that's because you found a product in the new product pavilion that you have got to go see and touch, or because you need to have an important conversation with a supplier you already work with. So definitely go with a plan. One of my favorite tips is reminding distributors to let their clients know they're going to be at Expo and ask them what they should be looking for them. Like, this is an investment you make for them as much as you make for you. And if you know they have a 5K coming up or they have a rebrand coming up, you can be keeping that in mind as you're walking the show floor. And then you have that built-in follow-up for when you get back. And so I think really planning ahead and making sure that your customers know you're going to be there are my 2 favorite tips.
Well, so you kind of touched on this a little bit, and I don't want to come off like I'm begging for more Sage plugs or anything, but you mentioned the show floor itself. It's huge.
It's huge.
And
it's bigger even this year than it was last year. So.
And that's a trend I can only imagine is going to continue to grow. So do you have any tips on actually navigating it, not just showing up and being overwhelmed?
No, you're so right. And the app it's a great thing to call out in the Sage mobile app as well. So it's super easy to search by product, to search by booth number, search by company name, and then the map just like zooms right in on where you need to go and it'll give you directions to get there, and it's extremely helpful to get around. So it's definitely the best tool.
Yeah, I would say take your time. Don't feel like you have to rush through the show floor. It can be intimidating. So you have 3 days, so take advantage of those days.
Well, and I think it also ties into how well you plan that ahead of time. Like you guys had mentioned, know what you're going for. If you have specific projects that you're working on, try to figure out what products you want to see, because you can search by the products that people are going to have there. And that way you've made your plan on how you're going to walk. Like I'm a very efficient planner when I go on any kind of trip. I don't want, like even just the grocery store, I try to make it so it's one clean pass and not walking back and forth the entire time. Well, let's talk about some of the other things that the show has to offer besides just the show floor, because believe it or not, that's not the whole thing. There's a lot more going on. What kind of special events and experiences are going to be available at this year's Expo?
Oh, my favorite topic. There's a lot. So I'll go through our ticketed events first. So starting off on conference day, we have the PPAI Expo networking lunch, a $15 lunch. Where can you get that in Vegas? And you get some great content to go with it. Lindsay, you want to talk about that session a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. So it's a new session this year. It's moderated by Danny Rosen, our incoming board chair at the moment. And it will be with panelists, distributor panelists from our PPAI 100 list, sharing some of their best sales tips. And so I think it's a great way to kick off the year with some sales executives that have had some huge wins in the last few years, and hopefully learn a little bit of what makes the magic there for them.
What about some of the other events? I mean, can you tell me, I know one of the really exciting ones is the pitch. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, that's a fun one.
Want me to do that one? Okay. So the pitch is sort of our combination of Shark Tank meets The Voice, where 7 suppliers get up and they pitch their product to 4 judges that are with their backs turned. So it's a blind pitch. And if the judge, who are all distributors, would buy the product, pitch the product, they turn around. And so at the end, they give feedback, some positive, some maybe a little bit more critical, on why they did turn around or why they didn't. It's so much fun. We usually have a lot of laughs. And we actually have 4 new judges this year. So we'll be talking about that and announcing it in a few days here, actually. So we have 4 new distributor judges joining us on stage.
That's very
exciting. And there's 4 bars this year instead of 2. Woo. So the lines will be shorter for drinks.
Exactly.
Well, because I guess there's really 3 goals at these kind of events, right? There's to learn, to network, and to drink, right?
Absolutely. It's promo.
Along those lines, why don't you tell me a little bit about Promo and Pints?
Oh, yes. Promo and Pints is back and better than ever. So we have some organized meetups that'll take place throughout the show floor, or throughout the show. We have the Inclusive Impact Meetup, Women in Promo Meetup, Technology Meetup, and the Emerging Leaders Meetup. So, and you can also just go and get a drink and meet new friends.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be all business
exactly.
all the time. I mean, and in fact, we'll talk about this maybe in some of the bonus content I'm going to have with some exhibitors and things like that, but you can't be all business all the time because it's just not genuine. Part of having these events is giving people to let their guard down and really get to know each other on a more personal level, because that's who you want to be doing business with.
People work with people they like.
How about pickleball?
Yes, play a friendly game of pickleball, which brings us back to pack those comfy shoes. So I think that there's a fun way to let loose is just play a game of pickleball, grab somebody you don't know, or organize a meetup and play a game. So that'll be fun.
There will be a couple promo celebrity matches as well. So keep your eye out for that.
I know it seems crazy that I haven't, because I feel like I'm the exact demographic that they've been pushing into. I haven't played pickleball yet. And my understanding, it's basically just like the middle ground between table tennis and actual tennis.
If you added like 15 super confusing rules.
Oh, there's a lot of rules.
But yes.
Well, that's exciting. I'll do my best to not make a fool of myself, because I'm definitely going to check that
We
one.
could play together.
Okay, good. Good. Then you can tell me all
Yeah.
the rules that I'm missing out. How about some of the PPAI events? I know there's been some changes this year to the opening reception.
Yes, opening reception. It is in a new location this year. So it's going to be held at Skyfall, which is the 64th floor of Delano. So it's a great way to continue the networking after conference day and enjoy some cool views.
And then how about it used to be called the party too, but as of last year, it's not.
The PPAI Expo party.
The Expo party.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that.
Also in a new location, Swingers Las Vegas. It is brand new. They just opened their doors November 8th. It is a fun mini golf venue that's kind of old English themed decor. On campus, I'm in the Bay, so an easy walk. So I'm really excited about that.
And then throughout the show, besides some of these specific things, there's going to be a lot of other meetups and lounges and things like that, right?
Yep. So keep an eye out for Sage push notifications. We'll have some pop-up treats throughout the show, as well as the Recharge Lounge is back and bigger. So grab a massage or just kind of catch up on some work. And then we have a coffee lounge that'll be on the show floor as well. So grab yourself a cup of coffee also, yeah. And then some other just lounges where you could sit. I feel like we really wanted to focus on being comfortable this year. And like we mentioned, it's a giant show floor. Sometimes we just need to rest, catch up on some work, and then get back out there. So
it's a lot of time at your feet on this show. And I
Exactly.
feel like we've driven that home a lot, but it's almost impossible to overstate it. Like,
Agreed.
I had even heard somebody telling me about not just having different shoes because they wear out different parts of your feet, but like be aware of what it is you're going to be doing. If you're going to be standing versus walking, which is going to be a difference between exhibitors and attendees, you're going to want different kinds of shoes for those kinds of things. All right. What about, let's talk, when it comes to these events, how can you plan to actually make all of these things? Should they just show up and look for them, or is there resources they can use to find them ahead of time?
Yeah.
Yep. So tickets can be purchased through registration. If you've already registered, you can go back in and modify your registration. The meetups, it's pre-registration recommended, but you don't have to. You could just show up and have a good time. But those ticketed events like the opening reception, the lunch, and the party, go ahead and get that added to your registration.
And were those part of the things that you said they were going up in a couple
Yes,
weeks?
December 6th. So take advantage of it. Got 2 weeks left.
Well, some of you listening live now, obviously you still have time. This episode goes out next Wednesday, so there should be still a lot of time. If you're listening to this episode anytime when it came out, go and register for these things now. Save a little bit of money. These events and experiences are really one of the major parts of the show, because there are trade shows, all year, all around the country for showing off products, and they're important, and it's an important part of the show, but everybody is going to be here, and you got to go to these kinds of things to really get the face time. So let's circle back to what you talked about earlier with the importance of follow-up after the show. Like, why is that so crucial? Like, what for your success?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think it's really your first opportunity to prove who you are as a company. I mean, if you have promised to send a sample or a quote or to check in a month because someone's got a project coming up, that's your first chance to share and show like, yes, I do what I say I'm going to do, which probably means my order is going to deliver on time and all of those things. So I think that's your first chance to really give that customer experience. And then frankly, I think people work on what's right in front of them. And so getting that out and making sure it's right in front of that customer and they have a chance to touch, feel, hold, fall in love with that product is what makes people move it forward.
Well, this is a stat I heard earlier this year, and it stuck with me because I've brought it up in just about every podcast or webinar I've done since, where it's the importance of building your brand, right? Because that is, especially for the exhibitors, that's what it is for here. There are going to be some attendees who come with specific projects in mind, and they might be looking to pull the trigger on a purchase, but the stat that I heard earlier in the year is that at any given time, somebody who sees one of your pieces of marketing efforts, and that is what coming to the expo is it's a big marketing effort. 95% of the people that see that are not in the market to buy that product right then. So your job is to get in their headspace and build your brand in their headspace, which is the importance of follow-up, is just that first contact at the show and continuing to nurture that as you go. So do you have any tips on how to continue to nurture after the show?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, so I think one of my favorite tips for that is to leverage your good old Outlook calendar or whatever email service you use. Because you're right, like if you're an exhibitor, the likelihood that someone's going to walk in your booth and be looking for your specific product is so low. They might not have been asked for it in a long time. They might not have ever sold it before. And so I think making sure that you have a cadence of checking in with people, especially those leads that you know have use for your product line. Maybe it aligns really well with their brand. Maybe they have a client that it definitely has a use for it, so that you remember to stay on that throughout the year, because we're all going to get to April and have forgotten about all the conversations we had at Expo. And if you remember to stay on that throughout the year, it'll stay in front of them. So that's probably my favorite, somewhat low tech tip for that.
Yeah, setting up your automations, just setting up the way to know when to...
Way to make it much more tech savvy, Gabe. I like that.
It's just one of those marketing buzzwords, right? Well, and you mentioned earlier too how when you get home, you've been away from what you're normally doing in your day job, you're swamped with emails. Do you have any tips on things they can do while they're still in Las Vegas that will make that follow-up process easier?
Ooh, frankly, I mean, I feel like follow-up's a little bit like working out. Like people are like, oh, when's the best time to work out? When you're going to do it. That's the answer. And so I think it's about having an honest thought process with yourself of what's going to work for me. Do I need to write the note down right now? Do I need to send the email right now? Do I need to do it every evening? Like what actually will work for me in the process? So I think truly it's about what works for you.
Some people, it might be in the evenings after you get back from the happy hours or things like that. Some people, they're getting back from those happy hours, they're getting to their hotel rooms and they are getting right in the bed. So they might need to make sure they're doing it in the morning. Because like we said about, keeping up and keeping that cadence, you don't, how often do you put on a jacket that you haven't worn in a year and you find a business card from
every single time
that and you're like, oh, I should have followed up, get those cards out of your pocket, get them into your, ShowLink or whatever lead system you're using to get those things done then. All right. Well, do you guys have any other, thoughts or insights that you'd like to share with the audience?
I'd love to share a tiny bit about Conference Day.
Please.
So I am really psyched about what we've got planned for this year. We have a keynote speaker who will open up the morning talking about sales. She actually comes from a large sales organization. We're announcing this in like 10 days, so you're getting a slightly vague version from me here. But it's going to be a phenomenal session. We've got a ton of amazing industry speakers who will talk in 5 different rooms all day. We have tracks that are specifically focused on sales, some on marketing, some on trends and research. We have one focused on business strategy. We have some focused on responsibility, so sustainability, CSR, DEI. So we have some truly great content from industry leaders as well. And then we do have a keynote Tuesday morning that'll be much more marketing focused. So really those 2 big areas of our industry, sales and marketing, with a focus there. Both of them have experience in the promo industry during their career, either from like an agency perspective or sales and leveraging it during their sales process perspective, which we found really fun as we did prep calls with them. So I think the attendees will really enjoy that tie-in as they move through.
Well, that's exciting. So that's getting announced in the next couple of weeks here?
Yes. So next week's all about the pitch, and the week after is all about our keynotes. So keep an eye out on PPAI's social media, PPAI HQ, and you'll be seeing those there.
So social media, is that going to be the best place for people to keep up with any other announcements or updates leading up to the show?
Absolutely. So if you're on our email list, you get those too. But frankly, our social media, either Instagram or Facebook, have a lot of great updates coming soon, and definitely the place to watch.
And if people have any questions, what is the best place for them to reach out and ask those?
Yeah, it's and shoot us an email at expositions@ppai.org. If they have any registration questions, registration@ppai.org, or they can visit our website and click the contact us button.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys, Lindsey and Ashley, for joining us today. It is an amazing thing that you guys do putting this together. I can't imagine all the logistics that have to go behind it. I know I couldn't have kept up with something like that, but Everybody who goes to the show loves it. You guys do such an excellent job, and we're so appreciative of you. And I'm personally very gracious that you came on the podcast. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thanks
for having us.
Absolutely. Well, guys, like I said, we have a lot of great bonus content coming out soon. So make sure you go and subscribe to this podcast if you're listening to the live version now. Specifically with this Expo related topic, we're going to have Amanda Carpenter from Sage is going to join us on a bonus episode, and we're going to be diving into Sage Mobile, and we're going to talk more particularly about some of the things that Lindsey and Ashley talked about how you can use that app to plan your time at the show, how you walk the show floor, how you find the education and networking events, and how you can work your follow-up and marketing efforts all from within that Sage environment. I'm also going to be sitting down with Mike Empey, Director of Marketing from Sortis, and he's going to be giving us some of the supplier side of Expo, which is really great both for suppliers, you get some tips and tricks from another supplier, and attendees, distributors. That's going to be a great episode for you to kind of get a peek into the perspective of the supplier side on Promo Perspectives. So make sure you subscribe, check those out. Go make sure you're registered for the PPAI Expo and any of the other events that are coming up. Now is the best time to do it to get the best prices. We'll see you guys in Las Vegas. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you again, Lindsey and Ashley.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, everybody, have a good day.